As delightfully fun as it is to speak spitefully and antagonistically towards the rest of the online left, I feel like I do that enough, so I'm going to make a sincere effort to be as constructive as possible for this very brief refrain where I talk about, in large part, my feelings on leftists who got all of this wrong. There was a delightful... Here, let me see if I can find it. I think it is copyright music, so I can't play it out loud, but I feel like the sentiment can still be appropriately interpreted from the content that you're seeing here on screen. A massive number of online lefties, some of whom, by the way, people for whom I have some degree... Not that guy. Other people whom I have some degree of respect, were very, very wrong about this. Incredibly, overwhelmingly wrong. Exceedingly wrong. Embarrassingly wrong. Now listen, I want to be clear about something, okay? My problem here isn't that people didn't read the future correctly, okay? If you were incorrect about how the Ukraine thing would play out, is O Fortuna copyrighted? I genuinely don't know. I don't even want to risk it. I don't even... It's YouTube. It's YouTube. I don't care. It's YouTube. Sometimes they'll copyright you for whatever. I don't care. Shh. Anyway, I'm not angry at anyone for not being able to accurately predict the future, okay? That is not a reason why I am upset with anybody, okay? The issue is the attitude that people have taken. And to be frank, like, there are a ton of people in the online left. First of all, okay, all the people who fell for Russian propaganda on this, you did the Iraq war thing. You are no different from all of the dupes in the liberal media who fell for the media and government-pushed support for the Iraq war invasion. You are exactly the same. You listened to an authoritarian government that or at least a government that was in that instance acting in an authoritarian manner, an undemocratic manner, which the Bush administration certainly was when it lied about WMDs, et cetera, et cetera. You fell for propaganda that was being manufactured in order to give a pretext for invasion that did nothing good and had no justification whatsoever. You did the exact same thing. Now there are different reasons why this can be bad. If you were just incorrect, if you just predicted the future incorrectly, I don't think that makes you a bad person, okay? The problem is a lot of people based their incorrect predictions off of trusting the Russian government. I have no idea what would lead any person in the left to trust the Russian government. Every negative criticism you could make towards bias within American media is indicative 1,000-fold for Russian state media. Seriously, I understand, and I understand. Like this is an issue of some contention for some groups, but if you can, by any objective metric, look at the lying taking place from Russian state media, it is overwhelming. Right now, Russian state propagandists are telling incompatible stories. Right now, some of them are saying there's no invasion. Some of them are saying that Ukraine is invading Russia. There are constant videos like showing false flags being made. Some of them so laughably bad. What was the one from just the other day? I need to replay this again. Like, these are people paid directly by the Russian government. Do you think they're not getting direct instructions to lie? Do you think that it's just a coincidence that all of them... Like a student film project. They're getting direct instructions from their bosses to lie about this stuff. What I'm saying isn't conspiracy. They've been doing this for decades. Nothing that I'm saying is new. If you're a leftist and you genuinely believe that the Russian government's motivations should be taken straightforwardly, that their intentions should be interpreted straightforwardly and in good faith, I have no idea what you're doing, okay? Listen, I don't know how else to phrase this, okay? Understanding that America is bad does not make you a leftist. That's like tier 0 political analysis. It's nothing. It's so meaningless. It's absolutely nothing, okay? Understanding that America bad and America do military war crime imperialism is about as foundational to a good political analysis as understanding that it's morally wrong to kill innocent people. It is such a foundational piece of information that without anything built up on top of it is essentially worthless, because depending on who's saying who's innocent, anyone can use that information to their benefit. Everybody agrees killing innocent civilians is bad. Fucking Nazi Germany did. They just redefined what innocent civilian meant. These moral pretexts are worthless unless properly supported. And in this case, is it true? Is it factually correct that America is an imperialist global hegemon that lies to support its own interests? Yes! Yes, it is. Objectively correct. You can, oh my God, that is so correct, okay? However, here's something equally objectively correct. That fact has nothing to do with the situation. Not at all. Not even remotely. It is absolutely irrelevant to this situation. And bringing it up constantly when you're talking about Russia invading Ukraine is literally just doing a geopolitical all lives matter. Oh, sure, yeah, Russians are like killing Ukrainian civilians over nothing, but like, did you know that America's bad too? Oh, really? I didn't know that. Maybe you should repeat it in every single statement that you make for your entire life because you're so insecure about being conflated with a neocon because you disagree with something Russia did. It is insecurity fundamentally, and it's one of the things that I've been talking about for a long time, an aesthetic obsession with leftism. Saying America didn't do anything wrong in this instance doesn't feel like a leftist thing to say, you understand? It doesn't vibe with that aesthetic. So insecurely, they feel a need to reaffirm the sincerity of their leftist positions by just inserting it at all times. In this case, it is not only pathetic, but harmful, because as I've said before, a key component of Russian propagandizing here is that NATO extension was what led to them invading. First of all, NATO has clearly said they're not going to let Ukraine in, because of the situation going on there at the time. NATO was under no threat of accepting Ukraine and hasn't been for years, and Russia has been funding literal paramilitary groups in Ukraine for like 8 years now. So the idea that this is the pretext they're basing this upon, absolutely not. NATO is still promising Ukraine the future. Wrong. You're falling for Russian propaganda. The only thing NATO is doing is saying they're not going to make an agreement with another country to deny a third country the ability to join NATO, which is totally reasonable. Why on earth would a defensive alliance agree to a country outside of that defensive alliance to not include a third country? That's not how this works. That's ridiculous. Russia's demands here are obscene. If Russia actually wanted this with Ukraine, why not just follow the Minsk agreements? The accords they signed and then immediately didn't follow? Possibly. If Russia actually wanted that, they could have signed a treaty with Ukraine and gotten Ukraine to agree to never petition for support in NATO. But that would require a concession from Russia's part, which they were never willing to do, obviously. They've never given anything to Ukraine. All they've ever done is take and take and take. All you do by talking about NATO as though it's even relevant to this question is bolster Russian propaganda, which then increases war support for Russian behavior domestically and abroad, which then leads further to the death of Ukrainian citizens. If you are at this point continuing to spout the NATO propaganda line, you are the same people who are saying that America's fear of WMDs was legitimate. You are the same person who, even after being proven wrong, because Putin explained why he's invading Ukraine, it was blood and soil. He did a blood and soil speech. He talked about how Lenin made a mistake to give Ukraine back to Ukraine, and he wanted to rebuild the borders of the Russian Empire. That is a blood and soil speech. That is explicitly, directly blood and soil. If you look at that, if you look at Putin, a person who is verbatim repeating the logic of blood and soil, do lefties even know what that means? Blood and soil, is this just like a term to them? Do they not know how that applies? The idea that nation states have a right to seize territory because their blood is our blood and we are of the same kind, that invasion is justified because of shared racial and ethnic hegemony? Exactly what Putin said. If you look at that speech of Putin's and go like, okay, well, like maybe NATO expansionism had something to do, you're as much of a dupe as somebody watching a speech from Hitler and genuinely believing that like his invasion of Poland and shit was because like of like Jewish banking aggression or whatever. Like you'll fall for anything. You will fall for anything. You are continuing to espouse their propaganda after the fact. Oh, and by the way, there were plenty of people in the United States like that back during World War II. There were plenty of both sidesers. There were people who were going, okay, what Hitler is doing is bad. Sure, it's bad, okay? However, who among us has not had problems with degeneracy and Jewish influence in our countries? That was a fairly common line. You guys know that, right? I'll wait for them to be done with the Amogus reference. But that was a fairly common sentiment. That wasn't like it wasn't like two guys said that. That was pretty, I disagree with what he's doing, but, and you know why they said that? They said that because they really didn't disagree with Hitler that much. They just knew it was kind of bad optics to full-facedly agree with him, so they had to back off that a little bit, you know. Go do the whole both sides route, do the whole all lives matter route, which, as we all know, all lives matter was just code for I support the police killing black people. This is an issue where lefties seem to be comfortable adopting it, like in a domestic sense, but like abroad they don't, and I just don't get it. Okay. If you listen to a leader give a blood and soil speech and are still playing defense for their expressed propaganda-based reasons, not rooted in fact, for why they're conducting an invasion, you cannot be a leftist. I'm sorry, you cannot be. This is too big of an issue, all right? Would you guys accept into the left people who shared most of your domestic positions but were aggressively in favor of the Iraq War? Personally, for me, I would consider that quite disqualifying. I would look at that and go, oh, okay, well, we may have agreed on some other stuff, but this is like, that. That's really bad. That's actually incredibly, really bad. I don't understand people like Hassan, who claim that they've retracted a bunch of their positions after getting everything wrong, and then are still retweeting people like Aaron Mate, an asset for the Russian State Department, who has literally gone on United Nations meetings on behalf of Russia to defend them in their claim that Assad has not used chemical weapons attacks on their own people. I don't understand people on the left who are using the Azov battalion as some kind of attack against Ukraine when, A, Russia has objectively a larger far-right militia force in the Wagner group. B, both far-right parties combined in Ukraine got like a combined 2% of the vote, which wasn't enough to get a single parliament seat, I believe. And C, Ukraine is literally the least anti-Semitic country in all of Eastern Europe by this metric. In some countries in Central and Eastern Europe, roughly 1 in 5 adults or more say they would not accept Jews as fellow citizens. Ukraine right here has one of the largest Jewish populations in the world. 5%, which is still too many percent points of people who would not accept Jews as fellow citizens, mind you, compared to Russia's 14%. Armenia, Weilen over here with 32%. Jesus. Ukraine's current president is Jewish. The people in Ukraine are more progressive on almost every front than Russia's. Putin gave a blood and soil speech before invading Ukraine. How can you possibly believe that Russia's invasion of Ukraine had anything to do with removing Nazis? Now that Russian forces have moved in, there are empirically more Nazis in Ukraine than there were before. The number has increased thus far. If Russia invaded, occupied Ukraine, and killed every member of the Azov battalion, there would still be more Nazis because of the Russian soldiers now in Ukraine. Blood and soil. Blood and soil. Meanwhile, even though they are still, relative to the United States, a conservative capitalist country, all of the official messaging from Ukraine's government has been perfectly in line with socialist values and ideals. How funny is that? Russia can't justify their invasion without invoking essentially Nazi rhetoric, but Ukraine defending itself can appeal to broader political ideals, the right to sovereignty, you know, the right to the desire for peace, you know, for a reduction in aggressions. All of these comply perfectly with, you know, the acceptable, at least in my mind, behavior from any socialist government. Russia cannot abide by these protocols because Russia is not only not a socialist government, they are a fascist government. Can you please explain blood and soil a bit more? Blood and soil is an imperialist pretext often used by fascist countries, not exclusively fascist, but overwhelmingly fascist, as a way of invading neighboring countries and annexing territory because the people in those territories are of one blood, i.e., they're considered to be a portion of the same cultural, ethnic, religious, language, or racial group as the country doing the invasions. The problem with blood and soil, and this is all laid out perfectly in the UN Security Council speech given by Kenya's diplomat, which was a spectacular speech that literally all of you should go watch. Recording of me reacting to it, by which I mean silently watching it, is up on my second channel, or you can just Google Kenya UN speech. It was incredible. It was really, really, really good. Like, really, really good. And I'm normally bored by diplomat speeches, okay? I'm not like a policy wonk or whatever. It was a very good speech. But as he explained, and as is the case, the problem is, guys, nation states are bullshit. Borders are bullshit, okay? It does not matter what country you're talking about. Borders are never going to perfectly define clear distinctions between ethnic, religious, racial, cultural, whatever, between countries, okay? It will never happen. And all countries that invoke blood and soil language do is use the pretext of ethnic unification as a way of justifying military imperialism. That is what Russia has done here. But Putin didn't simply just talk about taking the Donbass region because a lot of people there speak Russian, which they do. A lot of people there do speak Russian. He talked about rebuilding the Russian Empire. As we have seen in previous image comparisons, the Russian Empire's borders and the current country of Russia's borders are different. They are different. They end in very different places. They would have to take quite a few Eastern European countries and more to bring that back. Yeah, that was a little bit beyond blood and soil. That was more blood and soil when convenient, but also we want to rebuild our national empire as a way of, compensating for the humiliation we experienced when Lenin allowed for our country to be broken apart. Huh. Where have I heard that before? An authoritarian government using blood and soil to justify military pretext, but also wanting aggression to be used as a way of hearkening back to imperial expansion while, alluding to a greater time in the past. Hey, guys, it's Nazis. It's Nazis. And it's not a coincidence, by the way, that Dugan, the preeminent founder of Nazbolism, as we understand it, is one of the driving forces behind Russia's foreign policy. What he's written on, Russian national identity and their foreign policy. Alexander Dugan, right? Is it Dr or Dur? I forget if it's DR or DER or DRE. I know Dugan is the last name. Anyway, Alexander, just an R, not even an E. Okay, Alexander Dugan. Thank you. It's not a coincidence that this guy is one of the one of the most critical influencers of Russian foreign policy in terms of what he's written on and what should be done. Oh, he's a psychopath. He's not a Nazbol anymore. He's a neo-Eurasianist. Yeah, just like how Nazis aren't Nazis anymore, they're tradcons or paleocons or whatever else. Far-right groups are constantly redefining themselves as a way of avoiding the optical tension associated with the terminology they've ruined with their previous association. They've been doing this for ages and ages and ages. Even Hitler himself did it. There's a reason why Nazis have historically faked being socialists, in order to appeal to working class sentiment before throwing the hood off, killing all the people in their party who actually believes in socialism, and just doing the Nazi thing, which also reminds me of a lot of behavior in the online left recently. Look, all I'm going to say is this, okay? There is no room in the left for people who hold water for a fascist, far-right, ethno-nationalist government. And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, invoking blood and soil as a pretext for invasion is a form of ethno-nationalism. So told because it is, I don't know what else I can say. It's literally ethno-nationalism. Both of the terms of that word there are very squarely. You're using ethnicity as a determining force for not just imperialist action, but the authenticity of national inclusion. And if you don't think that a full Russian program, a full reconquest of the borderlines of the previous empire wouldn't include the ethnic oppression of groups they didn't like as much, then you're a fucking fool, because Stalin did that shit too. And so did Lenin. Look, authoritarianism is bad, okay, guys? Just capping this off, all right? I've said this in the past before about Bernie or bust, but this issue is much more severe to me, okay? I now, with all the power vested in me, okay, I condemn to an eternal blight everyone in the online left who is wrong on this and who does not see the error of their ways, okay? An eternal blight upon all of them, all right? May they rot. I will not work with these people. I will not speak well of these people. They are at most capable of being useful idiots in the future. But this is ridiculous. I cannot fucking believe this is the position we're in right now, as people on the left, oh, yeah, he gave a defense for the fascist government doing an invasion in order to push out the boundaries of their ethnic conquest of a former empire, but they want Medicare for all. Well, I don't fucking care if they want Medicare for all, if they're siding with fascist imperial. That's disqualifying. I'm sorry. I don't care. I don't care anymore. Jesus. And what I'm doing right now is considered a hot take, by the way. This is me being antagonistic. Hey guys, I don't think the left should allow for fascist apologia. Oh, we're so what drama bait, okay, whatever.